I make super budget $500 gaming PCs all the time, but I'll admit a lot of those take a ton of work and effort, and in today's market, I completely understand if you don't want to build one for yourself and you just want to go down the easy route. For $500, a laptop like this may be a better solution for you. Let's have a look. Today's video is sponsored by icmmo.com, which is kindly hooking you guys up with not just an activated version of Windows 10 and removing that nasty watermark, but they're also giving you guys an exclusive AF 35% discount code if you use ZAH35. Buying keys are super simple. Just head on down to the links in the description. Once you add that Windows 10 key to your cart, make sure you use the discount code ZAH35 and that'll drop the price down to less than 10 bucks. There's a ton of different ways to pay, including PayPal, and after buying, you'll be able to extract your key. From there, simply press the start button on your desktop, type in activation, paste in your key, and boom, Windows 10 is now activated and you're good to go. Head on down to the links in the description, and big thanks again to icmmo.com for sponsoring today's video. All right, so after scouring the internet for the best $500 laptop that's in stock and readily available at this price, this here, ladies and gentlemen, is what I've come up with. This is the Lenovo IdeaPad 3 14-inch, and in today's video, we're not only going to be deep diving into the features, build quality, and all that, but my new employee Sam benchmark the heck out of this thing so we can truly see the performance it's packing as well. Before taking a look at those specs, let's just all take a quick second and properly gauge our expectations. We all know that a $500 laptop should not compete in terms of price to performance with a $500 gaming desktop pre-COVID and the pandemic and whatnot, but yeah, please just remember that. Okay, so now we can jump into the specs. This specific Lenovo IdeaPad 3, which is linked down in the description by the way, is rocking a 14-inch 1080p display, an AMD Ryzen 5 5500U APU, which we'll talk about in just a second. There's 8GB of DDR4 RAM, a 256GB NVMe SSD, and for graphics, that's all powered by the integrated AMD Radeon 7 graphics. If you haven't heard of that Ryzen 5 5500U before, this is one of AMD's latest iterations of mobile processing, and this one is honestly pretty impressive for the price, at least on paper. Those cores also pack a base clock of 2.1 GHz and a max boost clock of up to 4.0 GHz. The default TDP is only 15 watts, which allows the laptop to stay cool and have a decent battery life, and for graphics, it's also sporting those 7 GPU cores with the Radeon 7 graphics. For all the other specs like RAM and SSD, these are about what I would expect for a sub $500 laptop, and although 8GB and 256GB isn't a lot for both of those categories, this is still certainly enough to get some light gaming in, and you can even store anywhere from 5 to 7 games on there, obviously depending on how big they are. Underneath the laptop, you can see that the included SSD can be swapped out for a full-size 2280 NVMe drive, although we did try to do this with one specific SSD and it didn't work for us. I'm still not sure if we had a corrupt drive or something. Just make sure you do your own research if you're thinking about buying this laptop and then upgrading that SSD. Moving on to that screen, this is only 1080p like I said, it's also 60 Hz, and I would quickly rate this as decent for the price and definitely just don't expect anything magical here. For gaming, I didn't notice any meaningful delay or ghosting or anything like that, although I will say that I wish the brightness was just a tad bit higher. If you're in a room with a ton of sunlight or definitely outside, chances are you're gonna wish that brightness got a little higher on this unit. This probably isn't a big deal to most people, but let's move on to the port selection that Lenovo chose here, which is honestly pretty impressive for this budget laptop. On the left-hand side, here's the power port, USB-A, full-sized HDMI, USB-C, and an audio combo jack, and over on the right-hand side, there's a much appreciated full-size SD card slot and another USB Type-A. Up at the top above the monitor, there's also a webcam with a privacy shutter. The quality here is decent, but again, nothing really to write home about. For the trackpad and mouse, this actually surprised me as well. For $500, I've definitely seen much worse keyboard and trackpad combos, and this one was perfectly fine as long as you gauge your expectations yet again. If you inspect the trackpad closely, you'll notice that there's some unevenness around the pad and it's harder to click in some places, but when you're just using this laptop as a normal person and not as a tech reviewer YouTuber, there's honestly just nothing wrong with it. Same thing with the keyboard. The keys are definitely that mushy membrane style and require just a bit more force than what I would call normal for them to activate, but again, while daily driving the laptop, I think it's perfectly acceptable. And finally, before getting into those benchmarks, I do want to talk about the build quality real quickly. This laptop was actually much heavier and sturdier than I thought it was going to be, which is nice, but it still feels cheap, just not super cheap. It's also a bit thicker than I would have liked, especially compared to some of those ridiculously ultralight laptops that we're seeing lately, and the top panel is built with that fake brushed aluminum, and it will definitely capture every last one of your fingerprints. But now we save the best for last, which is of course the performance. I'm sure a lot of you are dying to see what this Ryzen 5 5500U is capable of, and just as a quick spoiler alert, I honestly thought it was going to be a little bit better. We'll start with the easier games first. Shout out to Sam for crushing the benchmarking run yet again, but not just to get the numbers, he accidentally went a little ballistic on this Fortnite run. Let's watch him do his thing real quickly. Nothing new here, just another dub while benchmarking Fortnite here at the ZTT studio. But yeah, Fortnite in 1080p performance mode cranked out just 80 frames per second. After that, he tested Valorant, and in 1080p pro settings, he got even under 100 FPS on this one with 99. 99 FPS is certainly fine for a budget laptop that only has a 60 Hz display, but I don't know, man, Valorant isn't that tough to run, and I definitely expected better performance here. After that was Rogue Company, and in 1080p with low settings, Sam got at least over 60 FPS again with 72. Counter-Strike Global Offensive followed up after that, and in 1080p with pro settings, which is pretty much all low settings, we got 90 frames per second. Apex Legends was up next, and here we couldn't even put the settings at 1080p resolution to get above 60 FPS, so we dropped it down to 720p low settings and still only got 70 FPS. An unusual game on the channel is Rocket League, but we needed to fill this benchmarking run with easy to run titles, so that's why it's here, and in 1080p with low settings, this laptop got 78 FPS. And for the last easy to run total, we have Rainbow Six Siege, and with using the benchmarking tool in 900p with low settings again, I thought this would have been better at only 66 frames per second. Sam also tested a couple of tougher to run games, Far Cry New Dawn, Valheim, even Fall Guys, and then of course 3D Mark Time Spy. None of these got decent numbers as you can see, but they are all here just in case if you were interested in those. This sub $500 laptop is certainly not geared towards having the best AAA gaming experience or anything, but if you're on a super strict budget and you're okay with just playing the lighter esport related titles, then this laptop can certainly get the job done in that regard. In terms of cooling, you can also see that the laptop only ever got up to around 68 to 70 degrees while gaming, which isn't terrible for a budget unit like this. You can look at this as a positive, but then on the other hand, the hardware isn't exactly cranking out impressive numbers or anything, so yeah, it kind of should stay nice and chilly. Well, that's gonna wrap up what I think is the best $500 gaming laptop here in 2021 that's not on a crazy deal or anything. Be sure to click the video that's on the screen now if you want to see how I would build a full PC gaming laptop setup guide based around a budget laptop like this. But just like always, I hope you enjoyed this video.